Good night. It's the 14th of February 2025. It's calm outside, 6.5 degrees centigrade. I was at a social gathering down in the Midlands and I'm on the way back. And one of the things struck me as I drove through the smaller roads of South County Meath is that big lights in private premises, in gates of houses, but also in yards, parking places and yards, up high, and they're very brilliant, and they shine down where they're meant to shine, but they also shine into the face of the motorist, and they can be a nuisance. They can be a big put-off. It's hard enough to see when you're meeting vehicles. Anyway, just a point. I mean, you cannot dazzle somebody. You have to dip your headlights if you're meeting them on the road, and it shouldn't be any different, in my view, for people having lights on a private premises. Another point is, how useful the lines on the centre of the road are, especially on narrow, winding roads. They're very, very important. In America, there's an orange one in the centre and white ones on the verge, but in Ireland and Britain, the yellow ones are at the verge and the white one is in the centre. I suspect ours is the better one. As you come down from Dunshaughlin into Navan, the last roundabout on the old Navan Road, not on the M3, on the motorway, on the old Navan Road, come from Dunshaughlin and come out, you come to the last roundabout before Navan. Navan is about 3 miles to the north, and there's no signpost on the roundabout. There's a signpost for Cavan, but when you go on to the next exit, it says Johnstown, which is only a sub-part of Navan. Imagine a big roundabout and a big town 3 miles away and no sign for it. If you come off the road and take the right exit, you soon see a sign up for Navan. But it's amazing, like there's no sign for Navan. The other thing is that if I were designing signposts, I'd have the posts square, so they can't be swung and changed. It's unbelievable the amount of posters and signposts that point in the wrong direction in Ireland. Anyway, get back to the Ukraine war, and when the war happened, I predicted it'd last 2 years. It's now 3. It'll last a few months more. So I wasn't that bad. I mean, I was much longer than most, but I was still, didn't think it'd go the full 3 years. So it did. Now, things have changed in a big time, in an awful way. Now, one of the things which is quite apparent, I've told you before, the Ukraine had a government. It was happy. Everyone was happy enough with it. They could have prospered. They could have worked. They could have sold their goods to China, to Russia and China and to Europe, and everyone could be happy enough. But the big finances, houses like BlackRock Developments and several more in America and otherwise, wanted to grab all Ukraine's assets, including its rare earths, its all its good land, its coal, its oil, everything, all the good things it has, lithium and the whole lot. So they wanted that. They had a government, as I say, and everyone was happy with it. And Victoria Nuland, the American one, went over and aggravated them till they got a colour revolution, a purple colour revolution. And she gave out sweets. Now, before that happened in 2014. And around that time, there was anti-Russian feeling, and the Ukrainians killed an awful lot, at least 200 people in Odessa alone, of Russians who did nothing wrong, just exerting that they'd like to be treated like everyone else, and they were murdered. So that's a fact. Now, Zelensky wasn't involved in that so much, but his aim was to get Ukraine into the EU and into NATO, and that was a red rag to the bull because of Russia, because a lot of countries had already moved into NATO. There was a commitment given years ago to Gorbachev, way back in the 90s, that NATO would not be expanded, and they ignored it. The Minsk agreement on the settlement of the Ukraine issue was broken and ignored. And so Zelensky thought he'd get away with it, and the West thought they'd get away with it. But when Putin invaded on the 22nd of February 2022, all the indications are that within a short time Zelensky realised Putin was serious and he began to sue for peace. At that stage, The Crimea was gone and unlikely to be got back, but the rest of Ukraine was capable of being saved. That shows you that Zelensky and anyone with power in Ukraine had been acting under a degree of pressure from America and Britain. Now remember, Britain hates Russia, and in 1853, about that, they went to war over the Crimea. They went to war, and Irish people fought in that war. So they've been hating Russia for a long time. And I always say, why are we so annoyed about Russia? It's a Christian country like ourselves. Part of it's in Europe, Euro-Asia. Why can't we have the whole of Europe and Euro-Asia all part of the one? Not necessarily politically, but getting along together. But no, the British hate the Russians. They hate them more than the Americans, if the truth be known. Now, the minute Zelensky proposed having peace talks, Boris Johnson, the former failed British Prime Minister, decided to run over, and he flew over and he ordered them to stop. And Zelensky was in an awkward place because Johnson had a bit of punch. He says, if you want us to support you, you got to fight to the bitter end, to your last man. Victoria Nuland went over and stopped him having any peace talks. Jake Sullivan did the same, the American Secretary of State, and Antony Blinken did the same at the behest of Biden. So they told Zelensky in no uncertain terms, you must fight this to the last Ukrainian soldier. Now, the British government has been recently ordering Ukraine to start conscripting men between the age of 20 and 26. Currently, it's 26 when they're forced to join the army. But Zelensky has declined to do so, funny enough. So they don't care about the bloodshed they have caused, about 700 lives. The American deep state, the Democratic Party, the British state of all hues, the EU and them all have no interest in how many Ukrainian lives were lost. All those were preventable. So in any event, their position as of last October was they were hoping Kamala Harris would win, and she was going to continue this on for at least another 3 years. The amount of money that was going to go into it, the money is mostly gone. I would suggest it never reached Ukraine. It was siphoned off, but the arms manufacturers and the masters of war are getting their cut, and they always did. So now the situation is that the European Union, they thought they knew best. They have sanctions on Russia that don't work, and all of this. But Kamala Harris didn't win, and she'd have pressed the red button and put off a nuclear bomb in a jiffy. She's a communist. She's a nearhead. But she didn't win, and Trump has won. And now Trump is looking for the money back from Ukraine, and I wish Donald to tell you, you have some chance of getting that back. Not a dollar will you get back. He's now trying to look for the goodies of Ukraine. They haven't that much to give, and they haven't been needed to reconstruct the place. But what he may not know is that whether he likes it or whether anyone else likes it, Russia won the war. And what Russia's going to demand is they keep Crimea. They're not giving it away. That's their holiday resort. They'll keep the Donbass and the Levant. Isn't that the Levant, the eastern provinces? They'll want Zelensky overthrown in Ukraine. I don't know will they manage to get that. I don't know. The problem is now it's getting towards the stage where anyone in charge of Ukraine is subject to be shot and killed. Zelensky is really the only one that can run it, and he hasn't done that bad a job if he was left at it. So are they going to get him out? He's arrested several generals. The whole thing's going boways on him, and I say they have actually a little territory captured called Kursk. I wouldn't be at all surprised if the Russians don't cut off the Ukrainians and not let them get any supplies. So sorry, just the light goes out like that. So that's the thing. But the big news today, anyway, is that Donald Trump has rang Putin, and they're agreeing to talks. So Trump is not going to invest any more effort in Ukraine. The Europeans are up the wall. He didn't ring Herr Schulz of Germany. He paid no heed to Macron. He ignored them. And they are up the wall. And on the line here as well is NATO, because NATO has had this as a proxy war. And if NATO is powerless to do anything in this, well, what would they do if there was a real war? Not so easy for them. They've been showing up. Russia has a good, solid military. Okay, so Trump is talking about meeting Putin and getting this sorted. Now, he did ring Zelensky, and Trump is a courageous man enough. I wouldn't bother ringing Zelensky, because what can you tell him? He'd probably tell him we're going to have peace, and Zelensky wants peace. But once he speaks to Zelensky, he's going to be told we want the two provinces and the Crimea. He's not going to get that. Zelensky going to whinge and tear his hair, and I cannot see Trump giving any more than that. That's the settlement that will be imposed. I don't know what will happen. Zelensky, will he stay on, or what will do with him? How will they run it? The EU, America may well just throw it all over to the EU, or America may involve the EU in talks once they agree that there's no such thing as taking back territory. Talk is cheap. Not so easy taking on the Russian army in flat level in Ukraine, in the flatland of Ukraine. So that's the story, folks. It's over. I used to be very much against Zelensky, and I still am a bit, but I now do realise that he didn't have the say. He couldn't run it right. He was being told by these idiots, we'll look after you. They are not able to beat their way out of a paper bag. Britain is going to find it has no say. Russia's the top dog. The EU is going to find out it's mute. It has no say. It's a paper tiger. No say. And Trump is going to try and make sure that America is not the next calamity, that it's not the next empire to collapse. I'd say Trump's view of the world is you have America. He's talking about taking over Canada and Mexico. You have Russia. He doesn't mind it being strong. And you have China and you have India. And I'd say that's the way Trump sees the world. However that will work for him, I do not know. But I can tell you, as a fact, there is consternation in Europe among the heads of NATO and all. They thought that the Americans would keep pushing this. They were going to bleed it dry of all the men, kill another 2,000 or 3,000 soldiers and more. Young men, and waste them. Not going to happen. Now, the thing is, there are a lot of mercenaries over there, and I understand it now, and I have this reasonably good, but it's not just provable either. That if America finds any mercenaries, they kill them on the spot. That's why you see no funerals. There are definitely a lot of people from America, from Canada, from Australia, from Europe, from Britain, and a few from Ireland who went over to help the Ukrainians, thinking it was the right thing to do, and they can't get out of it. But I understand that if the Russians grab prisoners and there's one of them involved, he's killed. And that's why you don't see any funeral in Britain or in Scotland or in America. They never get home. Meanwhile, Trump has secured the release of a prisoner in Russia that was accused of spying. I don't know whether he was or not, but obviously you're going to see a warming of the relations. And one of the things that the West is pushing, Trump doesn't agree with, and I don't agree with. I do not believe that Putin is going to invade the Balkan states or Poland or Germany. I think that's all a ruse. The masters of war want the money to keep flowing, and Trump knows that, and Trump says, no way, you're not getting any more. They're done spending. Trump wants his presidency to be a success. He knows that the American people will give no credit at all for solving foreign wars. They don't give a damn. They have their own predicament at home in the United States, and Trump has promised to make America great again. He did not promise to make Ukraine great again, or Europe or anything else. Vance, J.D. Vance, and all these Trump cabinet all have the same view as me. The EU and Britain are silly, silly billies. Idiots, net zero and other baloney. Idiots. They are not able to assess anything, and they'll definitely not assess any military battlefield or get it right. You'd fit the whole British Army into a football stadium. So that's the story, folks. That's driven the Western goodies, the deep state in America, the whole lot, driven them mad. They wanted war at all costs. And Trump is going to avoid any war in that area. I'm not going to tell you there'll be no war in the Middle East. That's a different story. But I think that he will definitely manage to keep that Ukraine war off the boil and get some type of a settlement. They'll be given out, they'll be roaring, they'll be bawling, there's nothing they can do. Zelensky will tear his hair out. He's a man in a dangerous position anyway. There's not a lot he can do either. I think we're in the end game of it now, and that's just the story. It's more or less as I predicted. I couldn't predict it exactly accurate, but I'm very glad that when Trump got elected and I predicted that he'd throw the EU under a bus and the Ukraine under a bus, I was right because I watch him, watch him at rallies, and I know every move he makes. And this is quite what he does. He's sick of them. The crowd that are trying to keep America in the Ukraine and propping up the Ukraine militarily are the same crowd who attacked him and tried to destroy him. And he has no sympathy for any of them, and he has no sympathy for Ursula von der Leyen, von der telling lies, or any of these people. And he doesn't even like your man Keir Starmer either. So their goose is cooked, and we're entering on different times. Folks, 16 minutes. We leave it at that. I think that's everything. Thank you very much. We'll see you back soon.